Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today we've got a division battle for you. And I know we've seen these guys before. This was actually sent in by Battleship 61 in the North Carolina in the division. But the reason I know I've seen these three reprobates before is because of this guy here in the Rochester in the division. This is Richie Macrophage. It's a fairly distinctive name, it's difficult to forget. The third member of the division, in the British Tier 8 battleship HMS Monarch, is... I'll have a stab at pronouncing that one. The first half of his name is easy, Peyton. It's the second half of the name, Peyton Minier? I don't know, Peyton. Here in HMS Monarch. Quick word about the matchmaking. No carriers, no submarines, hooray. 2 destroyers, 3 cruisers per side. But what is going to be of slightly more significance, particularly to Macrophage and the Rochester, the cruiser, is that both teams have 6 battleships, which almost certainly means that all of the cruisers in this battle are already sweating bullets. Peyton obviously likes the look of the Monarch here, he keeps zooming in for close-ups. I have to admit, I do think the Monarch is a good-looking ship. I just like the way the British battleships look overall. I mean, they don't have the Hollywood movie star good looks of the American battleships like the Iowa, but these things, they do not look bad, and they do look like they mean business. A lot of people will tell you that the Monarch is not a very good ship. And you know what? They're right. It's not a very good ship. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's reasonably well armoured, although, you know, it's no Bismarck. It's reasonably fast. And it's reasonably well armed. It has 9 15-inch guns, although the range on the guns is kind of lacking. I mean, you can, I think, get the range on these guns up to 18.1 kilometres, which isn't great. Peyton here, his guns have a range of 17.9, so not fantastic. However, in order to mitigate that somewhat, it does have the spotter plane consumable, which will add an extra 20% to the range for a limited time. But what it does have is best-in-class stealth at this tier. Well, for a battleship, obviously destroyers and cruisers at this tier definitely have better stealth, but 11.5 kilometres, that's pretty good. And also, fairly typically, of British battleships, excellent high explosive shells. The best-in-class stealth, however, is going to be almost completely irrelevant in this battle, because Peyton here in the Monarch, as well as Battleship 61 in the North Carolina, are about to go balls deep. But while Peyton and Battleship 61 do at least have some armour to help them deal with what's about to happen, the same cannot be said for Richie Macrophage in the Rochester here. But it's alright, he does have an ace up his sleeve. But watch how he suckers this Pensacola into committing to an extremely foolish decision. He spots the Rochester stationary in open water and he thinks, aha, a target. It's not just the Pensacola that Richie needs to worry about. There's an Anhalt, an Ipiranga, an Odin, and a Kansas, all in shooting range, and he is spotted, and he is in open water, and they're all taking an interest in him. But what the Rochester does have, which is unusual for an American cruiser, well, it doesn't have radar, but it does have a smoke screen. And with the Pensacola successfully suckered into committing, there's one other thing that the Rochester has. It's got a North Carolina and a Monarch backing it up.
Problem solved, sir.
And as Richie successfully lands a double citadel on and bitch slaps the Pensacola to within an inch of its life, it's time for Peyton and Battleship 61 to take up the slack. In fact, with Richie continuing to salvo fire the Pensacola, Peyton isn't even going to bother to aim at him, instead finishing him off with the secondaries while he unloads on Kansas. So there's first blood to Peyton in the Monarch with an extremely unlikely secondary kill. Airstrike coming in from the Eendracht, which he saw coming, successfully manages to slow down and completely avoid. Despite the first blood on the Pensacola and the airstrike dodge, Peyton is of course aware that this is an extremely dangerous situation that he is voluntarily sailing into as he continues to focus down the Kansas, because he is sailing straight into a crossfire. He's got an Anhalt and an Ipiranga on his starboard beam. He's got the Kansas, the Monarch, and now a Yumihari. I mean, look at this crossfire. They are, however, kind of committed. So now's where you need to start prioritising your targets, and the Odin is definitely the biggest threat because he's got a nice big flat broadside to shoot at. There's no chance of him going undetected here, despite his excellent best-in-class stealth. But one thing that the Monarch does have, although it's not quite as overpowered as the consumable found on, for example, the Conqueror at tier 10, but the Monarch does have a pretty good heal. It's able to restore 75% of regular penetration damage and 100% of high explosive damage. And since neither he nor Battleship 61 there in the North Carolina are planning on backing down from this, he's going to need every bit of that heal to come out of this intact. They're both focusing down, as of course is Richie Macrophage in the Rochester, who's still got the benefit of the smoke screen. They're all focusing down the Odin, who is about to have a very, very bad day. One other thing to note about the Monarch, by the way, is that while its guns are not as powerful or as long-ranged as the North Carolina's 16-inch guns, they do have a 25-second reload. And of course, because the three of them are playing in a division, they also have the most overpowered consumable available for free in World of Warships: communication, which allows them to pull off maneuvers like this without getting in each other's way. There's the kill for Battleship 61 in the North Carolina, and now having survived this extremely unlikely bum rush, I mean, sailing into a crossfire in the middle of the map and not instantly dying is pretty impressive. But they're not out of the woods yet. Peyton's got less than 20 seconds to go before he can once again recover almost all of his health with the Monarch's enhanced repair party. Battleship 61 went into that turn with almost full health, and he's not on full health now. I mean, the Yumihari over there, the newish Japanese battlecruiser line, does have very accurate and very powerful guns. Armour though, not so much. There goes the heal. He'll probably end up on 50% health here, and while he did only have a single fire with less than 20 seconds to go, he's used the damage control anyway now that nobody is firing high explosive at him. Yumihari's gone undetected. They no longer have line of, well, they have line of fire, they just don't have line of sight, but there's another 8,000 or so damage. Peyton's back up to 25,000 health, and he can probably recover another 20,000 or so once his heal comes back off cooldown in a minute, although that will be the last charge of the heal available. But they've made it. It's 2 kills and a substantial amount of damage inflicted on both the Yumihari and the Kansas, and they're not dead. That Kansas, however, I think that was the rear turret alone from, yep, just the rear turret from Battleship 61's North Carolina. Next victim, please. It's going to be the Cherbourg. On paper, the Cherbourg is very well armed. 8 305mm guns in your fairly typical French double quad turret configuration, both at the front of the ship. There is something to be said about putting all of your eggs in 2 baskets, though, as Peyton's first salvo robs the Cherbourg of 50% of its firepower by knocking out one of those turrets. Now, the Cherbourg was always going to struggle in these circumstances because it has a horribly slow reload, and unlike most French cruisers, doesn't get torpedoes. And there goes his other turret. So now you've got nothing. Battleship 61 in the North Carolina claiming the kill again as the Indracht misses with yet another airstrike. Given recent events, you could be forgiven for thinking that Peyton and Battleship 61 were having all the fun, but Richie in the Rochester has not been idle. Well, he's lost almost all of his health, but his guns still work. And he's about to rack up his first kill on the enemy at Baranga. In fact, between the 3 of them, they've now racked up so much damage, they're about to earn the Strike Team Award. So this is a division-only award, and in order to earn it, and there it is, you have to inflict at least 50% of the hit point damage of the entire enemy team. And then, of course, at more or less the same time as the Strike Team Award comes in, Peyton lands a monster hit on the Colorado, The extremely unlucky Cherbourg player is complaining in chat that it wasn't fair. All of his guns got knocked out. Hey, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be playing the Cherbourg. Peyton's holding his final heal in reserve. He wants to get the maximum possible value out of it. And as he unloads a salvo against that pesky Eindracht just before he makes it into cover, that is good enough, even though it was only 5,000 damage. And he does get set on fire by the return fire from the Eindracht, but that was good enough to qualify him for the Confederate Award. Battleship fires, of course, last a full 60 seconds. But, well, he's got the heal ready to go. And, I mean, I personally would have just let that single fire go, because the heal can recover 100% of any fire damage. But I guess he wants to maximise the amount of health he has available, so he's used the damage control as well. Peyton scoring another big hit on the Colorado, followed up by yet another big hit from Battleship 61's North Carolina. The Eindracht just went down after running into the Xianyang's deepwater torpedoes. The Colorado stubbornly refusing to change course, although to be fair, there's only 4 of them left against 9 enemies. Now there's only 3 of them left against 9 enemies. Oh no, me and my big mouth. The friendly Leon, Sea Honda there, just got his name on the scoreboard by finishing off the Anhalt, which means the enemy team are now down to 1 destroyer and the Yumihari over there, who for some reason has decided he doesn't want to fight anymore. Also, the division just earned the shoulder-to-shoulder achievement. Again, this is a division-only achievement, and it's not particularly easy to get, because in order to qualify for it, between the 3 ships, or if there's a 2-ship division, between the 2 ships of the division, you have to damage at least 10 of the 12 enemy ships and inflict a minimum of 20% of their base hit points in damage. Which means that these 3 guys, Peyton here in the Monarch, Battleship 61 in the North Carolina, and of course, let's not forget Richie Macrophage in the USS Rochester, there's only 2 ships on the entire enemy team that they have not spanked. Elsewhere on the map, Richie, of course, has not been idle. I mean, you don't get the shoulder-to-shoulder and the strike team achievements by letting the rest of the division carry you. And he's just earned a Confederate for himself, which isn't bad, as the enemy Kagero desperately tries to avoid detection. Unfortunately, the Rochester doesn't have radar, so all the Kagero has to do is put the pedal to the metal, not fire his guns, and motor on out of there, and he does go undetected. Of course, chasing after a Kagero in a battleship is an extremely risky proposition, and surprisingly, the Bismarck wasn't running his hydro. So he does eat a torpedo or 2. Richie, taking no chances, pops his hydro. I mean, they're chasing a Kagero after all. I mean, I suppose it's likely, because the Bismarck does have hydro, but, well, he was chasing a Kagero, so it's likely that the Bismarck had been using the hydro, but it was on cooldown at the worst possible moment, which is unlucky, but hey, that's the way it goes. Richie killing his throttle there to ensure that he successfully flipped the final of the 3 cap circles, and the Bismarck, whose hydro is about to come off cooldown, there it goes, a day late and $1 short, but he did manage to detect those Kagero torpedoes with his face, and avoided running into any of them, so it's all good. And with the capture of the final cap circle, well, I mean, I can't see the enemy team coming back from this one. They're 700 points, 7 kills, and 3 cap circles down. Richie's got about 40 seconds left on his hydro. But the Bismarck's got his hydro running now, and, well, the Bismarck has very, very good hydro, so it's extremely unlikely that the Kagero is going to be able to pick up a consolation kill. They do know they are still both spotted by him, though, so they're adjusting their course and speed just to be on the safe side. Richie sends a couple of depth charge attack planes out, paying attention to see if he can spot any tracer to give him some idea of which side of the island the Kagero's observing them from, but, well, the Kagero's not falling for that old gang. Which is not good news for the Yumihari, who has just run out of places to run to and is the only thing available for anybody to shoot at. And so it's with a couple of volleys of armour piercing that Richie Macrophage, and yep, there's the Kagero's torpedoes, once again, day late and $1 short. But it's with that final volley of armour piercing that Richie Macrophage secures the kill, the team reaches 1,000 points, And Richie also secures the Brothers in Arms and Coordinated Attack Division achievements. So between the three of them, the only division achievement they did not get in that battle was General Offensive, which requires you to sink one ship of 3 different types. So they didn't get any destroyers, and there were no aircraft carriers or submarines for them to kill. But they did pick up Brothers in Arms. Each division member needs to destroy at least 2 ships in a single battle. Strike Team. The division needs to deal at least 50% of the total base hit points of all enemy ships. Coordinated Attack. The division must destroy at least 7 enemy ships. And Shoulder to Shoulder. Division needs to cause damage to at least 10 enemy ships. And there were only 12 of them to begin with. And they must inflict at least 20% of each ship's base hit points. No real surprise to see which 3 players ended up top of the team in this one. Although, you know what, guys? Not impressed. Come back when you've got the General Offensive achievement as well. Until then, you're just showing off. No, seriously though, extremely well done. And I hope you all enjoyed the return of the Goon Squad. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of them in future. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this one. And as always, take care. And I'll catch you next time.